This week on the podcast, it's the Pixel Parents Game of the Year special. We have our top 10, but what will come out on top? So sit back, relax, and join us as we crown our top 10 games for 2024. All this to come on the Pixel Parents Game of the Year. Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Pixel Parents Podcast, the show that discusses all things gaming from the perspective of parents. I am your host Liam Kirk-Kelvin, and today I'm delighted to be joined by the bearded one, Scott, the tastemaker Curry. How are we, Scott?
Very well. I am the deliberator of this podcast this evening. I'm about to throw some bombs on the Game of the Year choices, but I'm excited to talk about it. It's kind of been like the elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm.
For the last wee while, so it's going to be good to get into the meat and bones of this conversation.
Yes, I feel like I should have got dressed up or something. It feels very celebratory. it feels just like a big deal. It's an episode I've been really looking forward to for months now.
Plus, it really puts the cap on, the official Game of the Year as well, because we know that. Yeah. I mean, fuck off, Jeff Keighley. We know where the real Game of the Year stands. So
yeah, that's it.
Tune in and bite on this.
Yeah, not unlike the Game Awards, there'll be no ads on this podcast at all. I should add though, before we get into it, there's so many ads on Spotify podcasts now, and I'm like, what am I paying premium for?
I just skip them. I skip forward 15 seconds every single time it comes on.
But I just hate having to do that. It's like the ones inbuilt to Spotify, the ones subjected to. Fair enough, the ones for the podcasters themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Sort it out, Spotify. Sort it out. You're not my top 10. Anyway. Before we get into it, like I said, this is a very, very special episode. It's our Game of the Year. We're going to do things a little differently this week. But before we explain that, let's just get some housekeeping out the road,
Get it out the road.
So, for those listening, this is the Pixel Parents Podcast, the weekly podcast by parents who game for those who do the same, where each week we discuss all things gaming while raising little ones. If you want to be part of the podcast, come say hello and share your thoughts with us at pixelparents.bsky.social on Blue Sky, or write to us at pixelparentspodcast@gmail.com. If you like what you hear and you want to support the show, you can leave a 5-star review and share this podcast online with your friends. It really helps us out. And of course, thank you to everybody that has joined us each and every week. So, Scott, I think we should get into it. Things are going to be...
Like, what have we been playing this week? Oh my God, what have we been playing?
They're running a little bit different. So if you're used to the show, this is the part where we talk about what we've been playing this week. Not this week. This is purely about the games of the year. Now, we have used science for this. We have used the art of discussion, deliberation, and of course, Scott and his moderating skills have helped us curate the top 10. And what we're going to do in this podcast is we're going to go from bottom to top, starting number 10, revealing what they are, and discussing just why it deserves its flowers, really. And I think people will be pleasantly surprised with what we've picked. And as we mentioned before, it really does. I like this list. It tells the story of our podcast.
You said this before we recorded, and it's really hit me emotionally. But it's like, as I was thinking about the episodes and looking through my notes, these are games that I've played this year. Mm. Like, you seldom look back on this and be like, oh,
yeah,
in memoriam. These are the games that have been deleted from my PlayStation hard drive now. But it's just a nice wee look into the past.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like a bit of a rite of passage for any gaming podcast to kind of get to the Game of the Year point.
I also think what you've said, and that there will be some surprises in here, I think.
Mm-hmm. Certainly will be what ones are on there, what ones aren't on there.
Ooh.
You'll just have to listen to find out. Now, before we start at number 10, I just want to get a feel for you. In terms of a gaming year, Scott, what was the general vibe? How would you sum up 2024? As a year in gaming history?
It has been busy.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't feel like it was going to be busy to begin with, to be honest with you. It felt like we did an episode very early on in the year, which was like, where are the games at?
Yeah.
What's going to happen? And then, September came and we all progressively started crying into our pants. But it has just been very busy. Like, I've played more games this year than I care to believe. And you know, I've played longer games than I've ever played before as well. Like, this has been a year where 80-hour games have been reality.
Yeah.
And trying to fire through them as quickly as humanly possible has been a fucking nightmare. So I'm not doing it next year.
No. I mean, I'm with you in that. I think remembering that feeling of, I'll be feeling the post-pandemic, hangover, I suppose, when it comes to development of games. I suppose in some senses we were, but yeah, it just kind of got to that point where it was approached summer. And we started to see more things roll out. We got surprises like, Astrobot getting announced at State of Play. We also had ones that were getting delayed, like Assassin's Creed Shadows, for example. And, still no mention of other games that we thought would be in the horizon, but we know things have been cooking. It felt like there's a sense of momentum back in the industry. It was also a bad year for industry layoffs.
Yes.
I think before we continue, it's probably good looking at that in terms of all the highs. There were some real lows. Not everything went swimmingly this year. That's definitely the worst part of it. People losing their livelihoods. You hate to see it, particularly when it comes to them creating the things that we're here to talk about and love so much. You know. But yeah, I think on a whole, 2024 from a games outputs perspective was pretty decent.
Yeah,
pretty decent.
Better than I thought it was going to be, to be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm excited for what 2025 holds. I think, we're overdue another year like 2018.
I feel like you kind of feel like that's coming. Like, like it's the tidal wave ready to hit the games industry, and it kind of feels like that's just like Grand Theft Auto. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just kind of feels like when that game hits,
everything
the industry's fine again. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're all healed. But it's just good to see games like Dragon Age, like finally get out there and show what they've been cooking up for a while. Silent Hill and things like that as well. Like, it's just great to see these games actually show what they can do and come out with, like, to praise. You know what I mean? So it's nice to see it. But as you say, we've also had moments in things like Concord where it's just been like so it's been a very unpredictable year, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. Where it goes next, we have no idea.
That's part of the fun, though. Just join in the chaos and spread your butt cheeks and fly.
Yeah, that's exactly how we fly. I should also add as well, because we're doing things a little bit differently this week. Of course, it's the festive time of year. We want to just have something that you can enjoy with, a giant Toblerone in peace. And we'll not be doing the Pixel Pix Showdown this week because it's a different type of, Pixel Pix list, I suppose, the game of the year. We want to give it the credit that it's due. And we're just going to be sitting, just chatting through that this week.
The Pixel Pix Showdown of this week is the best game of 2024.
Yeah, it really is.
There you go.
It really is,
Shove that in your
pipe
and Toblerone.
So I think, we'll get to it. I think so. Scott, what we're going to do is you have the pleasure of revealing what is in each one of our slots.
Oh, do I?
Yes.
I don't like this pressure.
We go on. Now, let's start from the bottom and then we'll get here.
You're wanting to say it so badly. Wanting to start saying it.
So, what's coming in at number 10 on the Pixel Parents Game of the Year list?
So, to preface this, the difficulty with this list is that there's games that we have either both played or only one of us has played. So, we made a very sort of concerted effort to include both in terms of how we actually described it. So, number 10 on the Pixel Parents Game of the Year list for 2024 is Unicorn Overlord.
Ooh.
One that I chose. I just think it was beautiful. A beautiful time that I had with it. And it really harkens back to times on the podcast talking about it. I can remember gushing from moment to moment. Getting a platinum trophy on that game. It just felt right. The art style, everything Atlas can do with the art style, just the story and everything. This is the game that, we're giving plaudits to Metaphor, but Unicorn Overlord did it first,
Yeah.
And I just think it's a really worthy entry into it. I don't think it merits a place higher on the list. I think that there's better games that have come out this year, but I just wanted to give Unicorn Overlord its flowers in terms of what it done. And aye.
for those who aren't familiar, can you summarise what the game's about?
No, I can't actually, because I can't remember. No, it's just sort of typical. It's kind of like sort of Octopath Traveler, where it's like you take over this character who he's like a prince, and he ends up his kind of area, his castle, his town gets taken over. So then he gets taken away, and he has to create this army. And that's basically what you're doing, is you're going around and you're recruiting different characters to join this army.
Okay.
And what you do is you actually take part in these sort of real-time battles where you can move them around this small area.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Fire Emblem, the way that they move around, but it's you sort of create a path for them and they follow that path, and if they hit upon an enemy, then you can attack or you can move around or whatever. So it's class. It's really cool. And just the way it was, just the story and the relationships that build. Like, it's not just your character that builds relationship with other characters, it's characters within your ranks can also build relationships as well. So like if you take them out on certain missions together, you'll sometimes get like a wee piece of dialogue between the two, a wee story tidbit that's like, that's nice. But it just had a very satisfying gameplay loop.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like the ending was like, you knew what was coming, but it did it in such a way that was really nice. It kind of reminded me of when I played Triangle Strategy back in the day.
Oh yeah.
And that game hit like crack when it came out. And this was very much that exact same way. It was just, it's a game style that I'm not into most of the time, but it just hit me at a moment where I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And I just think it's a fantastic game. It's a game that I think that you would enjoy the sort of battle parts of it. And in terms of sort of the way that the battles work, is that you set up like a party of 4.
Yeah.
Is that a party of 4? I think it's a party of 4 or 5. You can get more as sort of time goes on. You can sort of increase your party size, and then they have all these weird relationships with each other, and like you do a certain move with one person that complements something that another person does, so it sort of multiplies, and then it just creates this whole thing. It's like it's layers upon layers upon layers of what this whole battle system does, and I think that there's a really, really amazing system in there that you could get lost in forever. But it's a game that I would love to go back and play, but it's also a game that I think that if you're playing it for the first time, play it with a guide and get some battle tips out there, get some party sort of compositions together, and you'll have a fucking brilliant time with it. So good. Even just thinking about it now, it's like, oh god, I could play it now.
Well, it's on the list, so it must be good.
It is very good.
It must be good. So, no, that's great, man. I remember you talking extensively about how much you enjoyed this game. I think when we were putting together this list, I was very much like, yeah, it absolutely deserves to be represented on this list. And you'll find that probably the more lower entries is probably filled with that, I would say.
Yeah.
Not a lot of them, well, games maybe what one of us has played, but we just know and respect the fact that it's like, yeah, what you emoted about that game, the reception you gave it, absolutely deserves its place there.
I think that emotion is towards the end of this list, not the higher ones, but kind of 10 up to about 6 are very emotional games. They're tied to something of the year, I think.
Yeah.
I think there are omissions in the list that we'll get to, but yeah, as I say, Unicorn Overlord was just a beautiful period of time.
Lovely. So that's number 10 on the list with Unicorn Overlord. So let's move on. What is coming in at number 9?
Number 9 is one from yourself. Thank goodness you're here.
Yes. Thank goodness it's on the list.
Tell me everything that I need to know about this game in 10 seconds.
Absolutely. So developed by a team called Supper. It's basically, British Humour Simulator, a little adventure game. You play as a little yellow guy that visits the town of Barnsworth, and you're there to visit the mayor, and you just get sidetracked and doing a lot of goofy, hilarious things along the way. You can effectively move and slap people. That's really it. And you engage with the environment and the characters around there by slapping them. It could be a lamppost, it could be a fishmonger's backside. It is quite possibly the funniest game I've ever played. If anybody that's familiar with the British style of humour, if you've ever watched UK Gold, you'll be right at home here. There's something about it that does represent that kind of small Northern English mining community style of it all.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many jokes aimed at Margaret Thatcher's expense.
Oh, I love to hear it.
Littered with like environmental jokes. It's littered with kind of jokes in the dialogue. It's just a really wonderful game that really does make you feel just so happy, smile on your face the whole way through it. And it's short. It's really short.
Going to say,
some people might criticise it for that, but it's cheap as chips, as I would say probably in the game. And it is just so quintessentially British humour in a way. They could not have nailed that any harder if they tried. It's weird. It's quite absurd. It's not quite Monty Python.
Yeah.
But, it obviously takes influences from there and the other elements of British humour. But as a game, it is actually fun. It's fun to play because it's not too taxing. You're basically just there to explore the town, and there's a constant delight around every corner as you progress. There's a little weird tale that happens. And yeah, it's a game that I would thoroughly recommend to anybody to play. You can get it pretty much anywhere now. I mean, I played it on PlayStation 5. I think it's on Switch. I think you can even get it I think you can get it on Mac as well. Well worth playing. Could not recommend it more. And again, one that I do think you would love as well.
Yeah, it's one that I've wanted to play, but just never got down to it.
Yeah,
I think that something that oozes this personality and has this care and attention put into it, and this smaller package, is really quite telling in the fact that it's on the list. Like, it would be quite easy to kind of look at it as a sort of throwaway experience in terms of you've given it a few hours and been like, yeah, that's funny, but it's had such an impact that it's like it has to be on the list. Do you know what I mean? Like it's good to see that.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to like if you had an old like comedy show that you liked. It's not something you're going to pick up and play all the time, but it's one that you're very happily going to go back and revisit with a little bit more of an interval between it. That's what it is.
Yeah,
it's something that I would love to see them expand upon and come back with a sequel.
A TV show,
it would fit perfectly. It's just, if you're into that style of humour and if you're into games that just really require you to move about and slap some backsides, this is the one for you.
I mean, I love smacking a backside, you know me.
It's so fantastic. I think when you play that, if you're in the mood where you're just like, I don't really want to put in like another 80-hour game as you mentioned, cannot recommend it enough. And to all of our listeners as well, it's definitely one that you need to check out from this year for sure. But we should move on to the next one, Scott. So what is coming in at number 8 on our list?
Number 8, and could have been higher, but I think it settles quite nicely at this point on the list. But number 8 on the Pixel Picks Game of the Year list is Helldivers 2.
Oh, heavyweight.
A surprising heavyweight. That's the thing with it, is that I think a lot of the plaudits that it got this year were from the surprise in terms of how it hit and the performance that it put in very, very early on in the year. This is my choice. Yep. You've not played it yet, but I think you would fucking love this game. Like, I think this is a game that, see if this came out back in the PS4 days when we were in the heydays of actual playing games together socially, like
all the time
with our other person, then this would have been the game for us. Like, this would have been honestly like crack. But the gameplay loop in that game is so stupid. Like, and everything that it does in terms of this whole managed democracy, the cutscenes, the social media campaigns for it. Like, we speak about this multimedia experience, but this is doing it on like a massive level. But then that's not even touching on the gameplay of it. Like, it's so straightforward and simple, but the things like calling in stratagems and having these massive explosions and stuff like that happen on the screen, seeing parts of bugs and robots and stuff just blowing up in front of your faces, dropping pods on your teammates. It's just fucking hilarious. Like, it's so stupid. And I think that's why it became like sleeper hit of the year. Do you know what I mean? Like, nobody would have predicted Helldivers 2 in 2023 would have said, do you know what, I think it's going to be potentially sort of up there with the Game of the Year suggestions for this year.
Yeah.
Helldivers 2. Do you know what I mean? So it's definitely one of those ones where it's definitely a surprise package, but I think it settles quite nicely and it's on the list, but it's not. I don't think it's in the game of the year contention by no means, but I think it definitely deserves a place on games of the year of 2024 because it made a massive impact. When it came out.
And I think that's an important thing to add. I think sometimes we get hung up on game of the year lists because we focus too much on the critical reception. When actually, I think cultural impact really goes for a long way in it. And I think you look at the cultural impact of Helldivers 2, PlayStation's fastest selling game of all time. It became a viral sensation overnight and, dominated the conversation for the longest time at the start of the year. But the community management side of it, just impeccable. I mean, even I'm aware of it. And it doesn't really seem to be something. I've still not played it. I think it's just because other games got in the way, to be honest with you. Probably more on that in a minute. But yeah, I think it's definitely one that deserves to be on the list. So let's see. We'll move on to the next one here for number 8.
Snake, answer me! Snake!
Hello there, listeners. Now, before we go on to number 7 on the list, I ballsed it up there because I said it was number 8. It's actually going to be number 7. There has been some time that's passed between that conversation and now. As you know, this is the Pixel Parents podcast, and you might have noticed just as we were having our conversation towards the end there was some little coughing going in the background, and unfortunately my household became victim to probably one of the worst bouts of COVID we've ever had at that point, and it has since done the rounds. Scott and I have both had bouts of everything and anything in between, Scott, I think it's fair to say.
It's been great.
It's been fantastic. But through the magic of technology, Scott.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
we're back.
It's virtual listing, and, we live and die for our fans. That's
it.
It's really, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but we have been the epicenter of COVID in the last week.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really all I want to say about the matter. I feel like that picture of that soldier, it just looks traumatized.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh fuck, I feel like that. I feel like Matt Damon at the end of Saving Private Ryan, but it's like I've just aged terribly this last week. It's been fucking horrendous.
Yeah.
So
I couldn't have put that better.
The less said, the better, to be honest with you.
Yeah, of course. But through the magic of technology, we're here. We're going to continue our Game of the Year list. I'm excited to get into that, of course. And yeah, let's just get cracking. So, Scott, what is number 7 on this hallowed list of ours?
I love this because before we started recording, we were like, "Was it number 8 we'd done? Was it number 7?" Then we're like, "Oh fuck, we'll just start at 7." But number 7 on the Pixel Parents Game of the Year list is Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. I believe it is.
Yes, it is indeed. This is one.
I'll let you on this one because I don't have enough to say on it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, similar to the last entry with Helldivers, one that you had played and I haven't. This is another one where we've kind of flipped. Again, Prince of Persia was arguably probably the top game on my list for a long time this year. Probably up until the top 3 had entered my life at some point. But what a game, man. It's just an absolute... It had no right being that good. That's probably the best way to sum it up. I think we got to January of this year, and you know what it's like in January. You're coming off the high of Christmas, and you're thinking, what am I going to play? Ubisoft dropped this absolute banger Metroidvania out of absolutely nowhere. And yes, I know Prince of Persia is the granddaddy that predates them, but it's the best way to sum it up, to be honest with you, if you've not played it. If you like 2D Metroidvania games, this is the one for you. The combat in it was absolutely exquisite. The platform and the abilities, everything that you can expect from the genre is here in spades, and it's got such a cool anime kind of inspired art style, I would say, at points. Like the action goes hard. It's proper mega anime hardness that happens in the action points in this. Hardness. Yeah.
That's great. I love that shit. That's so good. It's good. I've played it for maybe a couple hours, and the couple hours that I played of it was interesting. It's just me. I don't have the attention span of a fucking child, so you can't keep me hooked that long.
Yeah. I mean, Do you know, it's one of those ones I would love for if you ever had the time to go back to it. It's going to be difficult, I think, with those coming up. But it's one that I would definitely recommend to anybody that listening just now and to yourself. Like, it's such a good game. It deserves its place in the top 10 this year. Could have been higher, but as we will learn as we go on, the quality really did start to shine through as the year went on. And
I think we spoke about that before, isn't it? You know, it kind of felt like at the beginning of the year, like what's actually coming, and then you know everything just get dropped on us all at once, and it was great. Prince of Persia is always one that it's always kind of interested me, and I bought it, and then you know I took it back, but it's one of those ones where if it pops up on like a PlayStation Plus or an Xbox Game Pass or something, like it'll get played. And I think it's good. I think it's good that it's sort of, you know, Ubisoft are, you know, evil. They're the pantomime villain of the gaming industry. Do you know what I mean? Like they come out and everyone goes boo.
Yes.
But it's just nice to see them get like a win. Do you know what I mean? Like out of nowhere, out of completely nowhere. It's quite nice to see that. So fucking good on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And
good on
it. You're totally right. And I think it'd be a pretty easy prediction to say that that'll be on Ubisoft Plus, like via Game Pass or something. Probably
tomorrow we've got the scoop. It's on tomorrow.
That's it. We're the real insiders here.
I am Jeff Keighley now.
Honestly,
I am the captain.
Do you know that's how long it's been since we've recorded this? The Game Awards have happened in between, like when we started recording this episode to now.
Was that right? Is that right? Aye.
Yep.
So we actually know what Game of the Year is. That's ridiculous.
We do.
I've actually forgotten. No, I haven't forgotten what it is. There's been quite a bit that's happened in the time span between recording one, recording two, which we'll get to on future podcast. But have you got anything more to tell us about?
No,
the Persian Prince.
I think that is it. The Magnificent Seven is Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. So Scott, I'm keen to know, what do we have down then as number 6?
Number 6. It's the first.
The suspense. We've got some dead air
game
here
on the list that we can both.
See, you're going to have to say that again, Scott, because the listeners will be on tenterhooks here because you actually went and froze for a wee second. Yeah, so
put it again.
Number 6.
So, number 6 on the Pixel Parents list is a game that we both can talk about. I'm going to get real close to the mic for this one.
Nice.
And that game is Dragon Age: The Veilguard. Dragon Age: The Veilguard.
Excellent. Yes, I'm actually quite happy to see this featured on the list, if I'm honest. I feel like it didn't get any flowers at all at the end of the year.
I know. I think it's been lost in the shuffle of games that, people didn't want to hate. It's like, Dragon Age: The Veilguard is the sheep in The Simpsons, where you've got all the other games of this year is that wee lamb, and they're all like, oh, and then Dragon Age: The Veilguard is that sheep that just pops out. It's like fucking out of the way, you. Like, it kind of came and went, but I think that it does deserve some flowers. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was an excellent undertaking for a team that kind of prior history has shown to be fucking terrible. Do you know what I mean? Like Anthem, Mass Effect, Andromeda, like they needed this.
Yeah.
And love it or loathe it, it done a lot well, and it kind of tied up the story of what we know about Dragon Age quite neatly, and a neat wee bow for the future, which is
nice. Well, speaking of stories, like I'll share my thoughts on this in a minute, but I think one of the real success stories of this podcast this year has been your journey with Dragon Age. So I'm really keen to get your thoughts as to why you feel it does really deserve its place on the list, because you've played them all this year in the lead up to it.
Played them all. I have. I am Dragon Age now. Do you know what? I think coming off the back of Inquisition, which is a Game of the Year winner back in 2014 or something like that. I fucking knows when it was, but it was like 2000 and something.
Oh, bang on.
But coming off the back of that game, that it needs to hit something. It needs to bunt the ball at least just to kind of to score a point. I think that it's what's the word? It's not the best Dragon Age game for me. Like, kind of having played them all this year, it's definitely not my favourite, but it did it kind of, as I moved through that game, the characters, the cast of characters and the group that you create and how they all complement each other, regardless of what group that you go with and what playstyle you have, they all complement each other in such a really cool way that it makes the game more fun to play. Like when you're playing Inquisition, you've got your three and that's it. Like you can stick with Solus and Varric the whole way through. You don't, but you could. As soon as Iron Bull enters the fray, you're fucked.
That's true.
Quite literally. And with the Veilguard, it's like there was no one party setup that I ever had. I always took a random two with every single time I went out. It was always like two others. So the kind of the makeup was really quite nice. It was good to see some of the decisions actually make sense as well and actually have impact. So one of the sort of early decisions that you make has impact the whole way through the story, which is really cool, like straight to the end. So it was awesome. I don't know if I did platinum it. I think I've got like maybe one trophy that I didn't do because I messed up one decision. So if I wanted to go back through and play it again, I would. And you know what? It's something that I could easily go back to and knock that out because the gameplay loop was really satisfying. I enjoyed my time with the combat. And I think that if we didn't have games such as, the rest that are on this list coming up, it could have easily snuck into top 2, top 3 for me, to be honest with you, because it was just an excellent experience for this year. As I say, it was kind of the surprise package for me because I didn't come into this year thinking, do you know what, Dragon Age the Veilguard is the game for me this year. The Dragon Age is the series for me now, but kind of falling in love with that cast of characters and the story around them and stuff like that really, really hit me. So I think that's why it's high on my list. But coming from the Dragon Age veteran, what was your? Because I don't think we've actually spoken about it on the podcast yet. So what was your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, I love this game. I've still to roll credits on it. Like I mentioned this just before it came out on the show. I really want to take my time, excuse me, and take my time and really marinate. And it just because it feels like I've been waiting 10 years on it. So I'm going to take my time with it, and that I have done. And it's good because you know me, I like to burn through games, take the golden path. I've not been doing that this time. I've just been like, I'm going to go over there. I'm going to do this. Going to kind of work on this character relationship, so on and so forth. And it felt like a return to form for BioWare because the thing I was most worried about was, is this going to feel like Mass Effect Andromeda, which was just an all right game at best. And it didn't, I'm pleased to say. It felt like finally a step forward in the right direction for them. I agree with you, it's not the best Dragon Age game from what I've played so far, but I think it's still a very, very strong entry into the series, to be honest. And I think
definitely
you've hit the nail on the head. It's a game that had so much. You mentioned sheep. There's so many of these sheep out there that just went into this wanting to hate it, like, oh, it's woke, it's all the rest of it. Give over. You're playing as fucking elves and stuff at the end of the day, do you know what I mean? These people will barely ache about anything, and I don't know why they enjoy.
If a game doesn't have anything to complain about, it's not fun.
That's it. But there's something I appreciated in the game. I thought that they really handled. They handled more minority kind of viewpoints in a quite a really good way, quite a sensitive way, and in a way that didn't feel like, if you play it, this is getting, this is taking over the story or whatnot. It was done in a very natural way that kind of suited and aided the character moments, what they were going for. And I think that's the best way that you go about it, because you can tell that it was crafted by a team that really did take a number of voices together and put that into the characters to make them feel natural, to make them feel real, as opposed to let's just tag it on.
It didn't feel shoehorned in. It felt natural to it. So it wasn't like something that I played it and I was like, oh my god, what are they doing here? Like it felt real. It felt natural to the characters that are involved. So I totally agree with you. And fucking people are idiots. Like
yeah.
Twitter is just a fucking hellscape. So as I say, if people don't have anything to complain about, then just throw your game in the bin, because as you can piss off these people when you're doing a good job.
Oh, absolutely.
Fuck them, man.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's definitely deserved, I think, a little bit more praise. Dragon Age the Veilguard, I think, I mean, the combat system, the tweaks they made to that, I thought was the right move to modernise it. There's things in there that, of course, have been polarising, like the art style, like we're both on opposite ends of that. You either like it, you hate it. It's a very Marmite decision, but it's one that I'm still like, again, you take all these things together, it stood out as BioWare at least trying to shake something up a little bit and not just kind of do the same thing they'd done beforehand. And it's made me really excited for what they can do with Mass Effect. Again, it's made me excited and interested in what BioWare can do going forward, because they kind of felt a bit like Bethesda a little bit, you know, like they did have their heyday, and it was just like it starts to feel a wee bit samey. No, fair play to them. Fair play to them. Well deserved. They number
I think that's it. So. Yeah, number 6
They're number
on
6.
the list.
So, I think we've said all we have to say on Dragon Age the Veilguard. Very worthy number 6. I'm really excited to find out, and so the listeners, Scott, what is number 5?
Number 5. So we're hitting the big guns now. Number 5 on our list was, the surprise for me when it comes to your choices this year when we made our lists. And the choice for number 5 was Tekken 8.
Oh, yes. I'm so happy.
It's great. It's always cool seeing, fighting games on a top 10 list, because it tends to be, all these other games, narrative-based games and stuff like that really sort of that take up that space. But Tekken 8 hit hard this year. Like it was a fucking cracking entry into the series. So I think that you've had a more profound experience than me though with Tekken 8 this year. It sort of felt like this was the year for you. This was the what's the word? This was the Mortal Kombat 11 for you this year when it comes to me, because I fell in love with Mortal Kombat 11, but this was your.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if you told me at the start of the year that I'd be putting Tekken 8 on my top 10 games of the year, I would have said you were on crack. But that's someone who I've loved the Tekken series. It's the only fighting game I'll probably turn up for. I was even lucky enough to get a review copy when I was at the papers for Tekken 7. I remember giving it a really good score at the time, and I really enjoyed it. But Tekken 8 just took everything that someone like me needed to elevate the whole experience for me. And you're right, which is, how do we make people that aren't hardcore fighting players get back into this game and fall in love with it? How do we take someone that's new to the series and just kind of hold their hand, but not make them feel like dummies for doing so? And I thought the whole game's overriding message. Tekken basically isn't a fight, it's a dance. And it's a beautiful dance that you do together with your opponent. It took the sweat out the game. It took that. Nobody likes losing all the time. You go online in any fighting game and it can really tilt you, and you're like, this is pish. Why did I ever buy this? Whereas Tekken 8, you've got this constant sense of encouragement all the way through. And I know it's something that you'd mentioned that Street Fighter 6 has done as well, and it's something I need to get to, but I haven't played it. But with Tekken 8, I can't fault it. And you chuck in the absolutely impeccable gameplay plus that absolutely mental story mode. It's incredible. It was a total package.
It is ridiculous. That story mode is just insane. And it's the moments in it, obviously it's focused more on Jin, but it's when you get to points in the story where you've got all the characters running about this battlefield together. And it's this makes absolutely no sense. No. When you think about it, why are they all here? But why are they all there? I totally agree with you. I think we've spoken about Street Fighter and stuff before, and Street Fighter does do a good job of teaching new players how to play the game, but not in the way that Tekken does it. It's like Tekken tells you the button to press. If you lose a match and you go and press a replay, it tells you the button to press that could have won you the match.
Right.
And that's just constantly training you on what to do next. I think that the year that it's had, and adding certain characters as well. So you've obviously had Heihachi coming back. Heihachi, kill me, whatever you want to call him. But I have been so close, and I can't do it. but I've been so close to jumping back into Tekken just for Heihachi because that's my boy.
Now's the time, man. Now's the time.
And now they've added Clive from Final Fantasy 16 into it as well. So it's like, good lord, what are they trying to do to me? But it was just an excellent experience. Like coming off of Tekken 7, where I fell off Tekken 7 very quickly. With Tekken 8, there was more of a sort of slower decline on it for me, and it was just very much you get through that first few weeks and either it clicks or it doesn't, and it clicked for a bit, and then I was just getting absolutely tanked online. So I was like, nah, I don't need this in my life anymore. I don't need this pain. So I gave it up. But there is also a wee part of me that's like I could easily go back to it and enjoy my time with it again. So
you should.
It's been hilarious. It was hilarious watching you do it. Like you were obsessed with it. It was so funny.
I platinumed it, which was that's not really a big achievement, but it's more the platinum was thoroughly enjoyable, and all it asks you to do is to try everything out, and that includes online, offline, you name it. So I thought, do you know what, I'm going to do it, and it was one of the most fun platinums I've ever had. Easily, even the online ones where it starts to get sweaty. But even at that, because you could, was it the special style you could put on, so you could effectively just like 2-button input if you wanted to. But to be fair, I wasn't having to do that at first, and I started to get spanked, and it's like, do you know what, I've got that option, let's just use it, let's get the trophy, get in and out. But I was still having fun because the game is constantly reiterating to you, just go have fun and just make it look cool. It's not about winning, it's not about losing. And I thought, yeah, I can get on board with this.
That's it, aye.
Yeah, my proficient days of fighting games are well behind me. Tekken 8 is definitely one for like old farts like myself that just
it's also introduced quite a lot to like, you know, to Tekken players that I think it's become quite divisive in its fan base. But I think that for new players, you know, young and old, there's a space there for everyone. So try it out. If you haven't tried Tekken 8 out, give it a go. It'll probably be pretty cheap on, you know, the PlayStation Store or Xbox now. So go get a go.
Aye, please do. I think it was one that we've championed all year on this podcast for good reasons. So it should come as no surprise if you've been listening that it's on our top 10 game of the year list. But yeah, an absolutely champion entry in the series.
In the series, aye, and it kind of signals the way forward for Tekken. I think. I think that's Tekken's always been, you know, with Tekken 8, it's always one of those games that, well, Tekken in general, it's you always get a good 4 or 5 years out of one of the games. Do you know what I mean? Like Tekken 7 was about forever. So, and the way this game looks, it could go on for years, and they do a good job with that as well. So, aye, good to see.
Excellent.
Good
so
to see.
We're in the heavy hitters now, Scott. This is the Champions League places at this point. So what is number 4? I don't have the list in front of me, and I've forgotten what's on there. So what is number 4 on this list?
Number four was one that I chose. And on another day, this could have been number 1, to be honest with you. But number 4 is Silent Hill 2.
Oh, damn.
Remake.
Yeah. Yes. Not one that I have played, Scott, so I'm going to hand over to yourself to tell us why.
It's as faithful a remake of Silent Hill 2 that anyone could have ever asked for. Like, Bloober Team knocked it out the fucking park and then some. Like, if you had asked any Silent Hill fan before this game came out, they would have told you that this is going to be absolutely shite. Bloober Team do not have the chops, do not have the experience to make this. And the moment you turn that game on and you start walking to Silent Hill from that car, you're like, I am in. I am sold on this game from moment one. And then it just got better and better and better. I wasn't fully convinced on the sort of facial animations and stuff to begin with, but then sold on them as well. Like James, I never remember, is it Sunderland? I think it's Sunderland, but
Sunderland, yeah.
James is excellent in it. Like, I think I championed him for, you know, performance of the year, whatever it was, because I just thought it was incredible. And the moment to moment gameplay of it, like, in effect, you're basically just walking around. It's like a point and click game at that point. Do you know what I mean? You're just walking around, picking up things to find things to go to a different place. But it just reels you in constantly with, this is the next thing you have to do. Here's another creepy thing to look for. And you start to then get to points where you get to the prison, and it's like you cannot see anything in front of you, like 2 feet in front of you, you're done.
Oh, man.
But what you have to do is you have to listen to what's coming along, so you can hear all the different monsters and stuff scuttle across the walls, and you can hear where they're coming from. And it's like, this is horrible.
Oh.
This is honestly the worst, but it is phenomenal. And it's Silent Hill 2. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's one of the best games of our lifetimes.
Yeah.
Like, I think that it's, I don't know if I'd say top 20, but at least top 50 in terms of games ever. So I do think that the fact that Bloober Team have come out of this relatively unscathed is incredible, but the fact that they've come out with a game that is as faithful a remake as anyone's ever going to make a Silent Hill 2, it's phenomenal. And it was my standout, honestly, it's my standout game for this year. This is my own personal game of the year because it was just a total surprise package for me. I don't think it's for the faint of heart because, you know, I don't think you could play Silent Hill 2.
No,
I'd love to watch it, but
maybe for charity one day.
Honestly, if you were nervous and tense playing Alan Wake 2, this is just Alan Wake 2 times 100, you know, turned up to 11. So it's phenomenal, and it's one of those games where I could go back and play it tomorrow and have the exact same experience, and it would be amazing. I'd love every single moment of it. So I think that it was just my points that put this at number 4, which is ridiculous because I scored it so high.
I think that's a good point to raise, though. I mean, the way that we've done this is that we've used like that point scoring weighting, but I felt very strongly that it had to still be up there because we looked at what the output was, and we still then debated where things land on it, kind of to give us a steer. But I felt that Silent Hill 2 deserved to be so high up on this list as someone who hasn't played it, but purely like this is supposed to be representative of our podcast and telling our story. And I think you're right, like the reaction and the emotion that's been attached to Silent Hill 2 from yourself hasn't gone unnoticed. And I'm like, no, that's a big deal in terms of like the games that you have played this year. And I think that has to carry weight. It does have to carry weight. And that sounds odd to somebody who hasn't nor will ever play this game because I'm an absolute coward. But I think you could see the praise there among peers as well. And the thing that I was so happy about to see was that this was such a surprise for you going into it. Like, I remember you thinking, well, maybe you saying, actually, do you know what, I'm going to play it, but I'm not really that bothered. And it absolutely pulled you in. Like, I've not seen a game do it in some time.
It was incredible. And it's nice to see a horror game, you know, do well. Like, which is strange because these games are a dime a dozen, but it's just it was just nice to see them do something really well. And I think it's good for the future of Silent Hill because the world needs Silent Hill. Do you know what I mean? We can't always rely on Hideo Kojima to pretend he's making it. So it's always just nice to see it do well, and you can remake Silent Hill 3 while you're at it. Get that sorted and hurry up.
You never know. It just seems the golden age of the remake projects are well and truly here.
It's good though because they're remaking games that they're an absolute fortune to buy. Like, see, if you want to go and buy an original copy of Silent Hill 2, you're shelling out at least £100. So it's like, fuck that.
That's true, actually. Plus, as well, with the way technology is now, even though Silent Hill 2, the original, which I did play back in the day, there are certain games which do, of course, lead me to where I am today, being a coward. Silent Hill 2 has been one of them. But they made such an expert use of the limited technology to create such an atmosphere. But even that being said, games like that still warrant this remake treatment, because you can see just how much further the fidelity brings on the atmosphere, the world building, everything that's there. I mean, I would absolutely cack my pants playing that game, but it just makes the case for the technology. And like you says, if it's more economical, if it becomes profitable, it was worthwhile doing. Absolutely.
Well, that's it. Exactly.
Oh, well, congratulations to Silent Hill 2, the little game that could, I suppose, because nobody was banking on that. I think you're right. Everybody was expecting it to be a disaster for some strange reason. I'm not too familiar with Bloober Team, but that's all I remember hearing. Now, that obviously leads us now. We're in the top 3. This is the upper echelons of the list, Scott. I think we know what the 3 games are left on our list, and to be honest with you, it could be any one of them at the top, and we would be happy with it. You know,
that's exactly what I was just about to say. Is, I mean, I might just change one of the numbers because you don't know where they are. I might just change it, but no, I won't.
You can if you want. You can if you want. But I think I have backed and forth on this so many times since we've sat and deliberated. But however, we are men of credibility, of honour, of our word. So we will stick to it, Scott. So why don't we kick it off? And why don't you just remind me and tell everybody else what is number 3 on the Game of the Year list?
Number 3 on the Pixel Parents Game of the Year list. And it pains me to say this because it's number 3, but it's Balatro.
Oh my God, it should be number 1.
You know what? It could be. It could easily be. It's
another day.
It's ridiculous. Like, I don't even know how to explain it, but it's become part of routine in my life now. That if I've got a spare, even if I can't finish a run, if I've got a spare couple of minutes to get through parts of a run, I'll do it. Like, I'll play it before I go to bed. I've probably not slept well for about the past month because I go to bed and I play it for a wee bit of time, but it's ridiculous. Like, I've never become so obsessed with having 2 pairs in my hand more than I ever have before. Outrageous, man.
There was a dad joke in there somewhere. But yeah, I think you're spot on. When we last spoke about Balatro, I think it might have been in our Game Awards kind of predictions, fixing the Game Awards episode. I think at the time I had said it's this generation's Tetris, and I stand by that because it's the beauty and the simplicity, the addictiveness, and the genius of how this game works. You know, a poker roguelike game. I remember hearing about it through other podcasts, and they were addicted to it, and you're like, what is this game about? And also I was like, this, I don't know if this sounds great because I'm not the biggest poker player. I have an understanding of it, but I'm like, I'm not going to sit there and play poker. And it's one of those ones where as soon as you play it, you get it, and as soon as you get it, it doesn't let go. Like, I'm with you. I made a big mistake since not being well, and I always said I'm not going to buy it on my phone because I've just been playing it on the PlayStation 5 since it got added on there. And whilst I thoroughly enjoy, and in fact I'll come back to the PlayStation 5 experience in a minute, but putting that on my phone might actually have killed Marvel Snap for me in the past couple of weeks. It is unbelievable. Like, even though if you have it, I think you can get it as part of Apple Arcade. It's $9.99 in the App Store. I think it will be the same on the Android store as well. But my God, I mean, if there's a safer use of cash to get a game this year, I don't think that exists on this list because it will just consume and claim your soul. I think that Joker is there to take people's souls. I think that's what its purpose in life is when it's talking to you. But yeah, it's like I said, it's became part of routine in the house as well. If my wife is sitting there on the couch reading a book, and if I'm not playing any one of these big games, it's Balatro in between. And the thing 100%. That I find so impressive about it is that it's one that I can play without the headphones and that music, and she does not complain. She's reading a book, and it's just that music. We were talking about this a few weeks ago. You can just sit and hum away, and it's a bop, it's a jam, but it just pulls you in.
Disgusting. It's and all it manages to gamify it in a way that, you know, is interesting, but also like the different decks that you get, and managing to gamify that and make that more interesting and stuff as well is just ridiculous. Like, I think it's I've played a lot of games this year and a lot of games that are long, but it's definitely one of those games where I've probably played Balatro most out of any game this year, I'd say.
Yeah.
Easily.
Easy. Absolutely easy.
Ridiculous.
I mean, that's the scary thing about it. And then you start, your thinking changes. You start to create builds. It's like, I'm going to do a build all around flushes or around 2 pairs. That's my go-to. I always try to do the 2-pair build. I even put the game speed up to 4 times, just so that I'm getting through getting through runs extra quick. And
it's hilarious because I didn't know you could do that until you showed me.
So
I was putting it at normal speed my whole life, and then you showed me that, and I've been like, oh my god, I can get through games twice as fast now.
and it's the input, it's the sensory side of it, the little noises that it makes as the multipliers rack up, and you feel good. There's something that just scratches in your brain. You're like, yeah, this is great. Pulling off that,
especially on your phone, when your phone clicks, your phone does wee clicking noises and wee feelings and stuff like that. It's like, oh man, this is what it should be about, man.
Yeah, it's a total productivity killer. It's the one game that I recommend to gamers and casual and hardcore alike this year. I'd recommend it to my brother-in-law, actually.
This whole podcast is about parents who game and limited time in games.
That's true.
This is perfect for it, I'd say. This is the perfect game for you.
Oh, it really is, man. And I have to also add, see on the Portal, it is fantastic. Like, such a good experience on the Portal. So if you've got one of them as well, and you just want a game that you can pick up and just get your fix, Balatro is made for you. But we will say this. It will, I'm not being funny, it will claim your soul. I mean, me and Scott have lost it. It will claim your soul.
It shouldn't, but it shouldn't, but yeah, it will. And it's just a masterpiece. Like, on a different day, if you asked me about Game of the Year tomorrow, I'd probably say Balatro, to be honest with you. It's definitely something that I think that it could quite easily have won it, won the big one, but there's just other games this year that I've enjoyed, so
it's absolutely they're all, I think, in some senses it's a bit of a cop-out, but I'm like, this and the next 2 games are kind of all my joint top game this year, but we do have to rank them, and we do have to give someone the crown. Only winners
in this.
Well, Balatro then, number 3. What is number 2 then, Scott, on your list?
Number 2 is the controversial one, because we have disagreed with the man, the corporate establishment. We have gone against
the marketing mogul.
Number 2, that's it. We're standing out for the big men. Now we have picked Astrobot for number 2.
Yes.
Again, could have easily been number 1. I don't think my own personal, I'm in my own head, I could have, it wouldn't have sat right if Astrobot had been on this list at number 1. With Balatro at number 2, it would have bothered me more. But the way that it's sat, I'm happy. But it was a great experience. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was just a total roller coaster ride, and I loved my time with that. I never played Astro's Playroom or anything like that, so I had no prior experience to this. So I mean, it was just a really cool time with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Astrobot, we both gave it a 10 when we played it when it came out at the time. Stand by it. This could have easily been top for me, I think, for what it represents and for what our podcast is all about. This is a game that I will still play to this day with my son, and it's one that my son will still, ask to play on an almost daily basis, and it's the one that he'll watch videos about on his tablet. It's become a total obsession, and even at that, it's still, I don't think it's quite permeated through to the young ones in the way like a Mario has yet, but this is as good a chance as we'll ever see from Sony to create that type of platform, or king that they badly need. And it was Game of the Year winner at Achilles, and I thought deservedly so, because again, Balatro, Astrobot, and the next one, I would be happy. For me, I think you will find out why momentarily, why it's not number 1. But I'm going to stay with Astrobot just now, in the sense that in terms of a game, I feel like it's just such a perfectly simple, perfectly executed platformer game that is almost a bit of a dying breed. it's not going to do anything, in the same way that like they're reinventing the wheel or anything like that. But the stuff that they do here is done so perfectly, it's easy to take it for granted. Should also add that my wife's under the table just now, just kind of digging out presents. So if you're wondering if there's somebody tucking into a giant crunchy or something next to me, it's not the case.
I just opened up a snack as you're talking about Astrobot.
I know, obviously she didn't want Astrobot on the list at all, you can tell. This is just a very chaotic episode. But yeah, I think we come back to Astrobot, when you take in everything, from, it's more than just a celebration of PlayStation and like almost a PlayStation marketing tool. It does that in a way that does really take care and joy and celebrate the characters. But then it's the way that the worlds are introduced, the gameplay itself, it's just so snappy. The haptics, making use of everything, every kind of tool that the PlayStation 5 can offer. And they do it in such a way that it might be probably the most finely tuned gameplay experience I have played in the past decade, to be honest with you. And it's because it takes that mantra of do something simple and do it really fucking well. And that's all you need. That's all you need at the end of the day. For the same reason, I suppose you could argue, why hasn't like Insomniac, the Spider-Man 2 or something like that, did the same, but it's a bit more exotic than this. But Astrobot, I could wax lyrical about it all day. And it's also, from a family perspective, if you've got young ones, I mean, this is just an absolute winner. If you want to get your kids into gaming, if you want to, introduce nieces and nephews to some new game, this is the one. Hand on heart, it's the best family game you'll see outside of a Super Mario Odyssey sequel coming maybe soon. So it's absolutely fantastic. 10 out of 10.
Insider knowledge.
Yeah.
I think the fact that it won Game of the Year says everything. Do you know what I mean? Like the fact that we're sitting here in a world where Astrobot is 2024's official Game of the Year, according to Jeff Keighley and all these cronies, that it basically is testament to it. I think that coming off of the back of having never played any other Astrobot game in the past, it was very much like, let's just see what this takes us, and it was just the bots and stuff and the interactivity with it, seeing what they were doing with different characters and stuff as well, and then how that integrates and utilizes everything, as you say, that the PlayStation 5 can do.
Yeah.
And the controller is the star of that show. It's just an incredible feat. So no, definitely, and it deserves its place on the list. Like, as I say, it's a phenomenal experience, and
yeah,
I'm glad that I played it this year. I'm glad that I had the time to play it.
Yeah, I think it's a new star is born for sure. It's something that Sony and PlayStation would be stupid to not like kind of fast track a sequel as soon as possible, like in the next couple of years. It'll be there at the launch of the PlayStation 6, which we'll all be raging about because it'll be like 900 quid. And it won't be boxed in this time.
That's just the game.
That's just the game. And like he says, it got the biggest accolade at the Keighley's, which is just one of many, kind of.
Yeah, but we don't listen to the rest because they all gave fucking Metaphor ReFantasia.
You know what I mean? Sometimes you've got to look cool. I guess it was not number one on our list. But yeah, I think it deserves all the praise that it gets. The further away that I'm from our kind of setting in stone of the list, I've always been thinking like, it would seem like the low hanging fruit option for us to put Astrobot at number one, and we could have easily done that just because of what this podcast is about. But this podcast has been about so much more than that. This list tells the story of our debut year of our
I think that's it. I think looking through the list, it was something we spoke about when we originally recorded the podcast. A few weeks ago, it seems like. But you can read through this list, and it just tells you everything you need to know about our year.
Yeah,
and I think that the fact that this game is number one is it's the most obvious decision that anyone has ever made in terms of this podcast. Like, it was just an incredible moment in time.
It really was. And before we get into that, Scott, before you reveal what the official Pixel Parents Game of the Year is, do we have like some mad orchestra or something like that coming out, or do you get a kazoo or something like that? I'm not really sure. Like, I mean,
I just want that giant guy that plays the huge trombone at the Game Awards. I just want him. I'll put the horn on. Give me a minute. I'll find this horn. Where is it again? Or you can get the duck. You ready?
Right, here we go. Excellent. That kind of serenades the official announcement, Scott. So you have the honours. Take it away. Please tell us what is the official Game of the Year for Pixel Parents.
Official Pixel Parents Game of the Year of 2024 was and is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Well done.
It thoroughly deserves it in my mind.
Yeah,
I can see why other people may not believe that it's Game of the Year, and I think the fact that it came out in January hurts it. But it was
that January?
I think so. It was early. It was early this year, but it came out fucking early doors in 2024, and we were playing it from the moment we started recording this podcast. We were playing it anyway. We were a few weeks in. We were coming up to it, so and it was just an incredible run. Like, being able to play that at the same time as you and have someone to talk about what was going on with. It's just ridiculous. Like, get to share this experience with. And it's the culmination of everything that I've been wanting to see for the past 3-4 years after Rebirth and stuff as well, and after Intergrade. It was just ridiculous. So being able to play Final Fantasy VII and experience that world of, getting to see Nibelheim in glorious 3D, getting to see Sephiroth's big beautiful face once more, I'm all about it. And Final Fantasy VII has never looked better. Do you know what I mean? Like, we spoke about it on the podcast very early on, but seeing the literal pores in the characters' faces every single moment is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was just a beautiful experience. Like, for all its flaws and for everything that it doesn't do well in terms of the open world, if you condense that story down and the story beats in that game, it's just fucking outrageous. It's ridiculous. So, I couldn't have picked anything else. It's sat with me this whole year, and that ending and stuff as well has just been sitting with me the whole time. So, it's just I'm now just riding that hype train and trying not to die before Part 3 comes out. So that's my life now.
Whenever that falls, I mean, this is genuinely, if you were to say to me at the start of the year, like, and I've said this a lot, but really, that this would be on my Game of the Year list, I definitely would have said that you're on crack, because this was at the start of the year. I infamously never gelled or enjoyed Final Fantasy VII, the original. It was famously gave me migraines. I was so bored as a child with it. But I've unpicked that. If you want to hear more about that, go back and listen to the early episodes when we dig into it, because I want to just spend the time and give this game its flowers. But I went on a journey, starting, of course, with Final Fantasy VII Remake. Absolutely falling in love with all the world and the characters. And then midway through my play of that, I remember texting you a picture, Scott. And it was basically just me that basically confirmed that I pre-ordered Rebirth, because I'm like, I'm in. Here we go. I'm on the train now. Let's go. And I'm so glad that I joined and got on the journey, because what they've managed to do here with this, taking the source material, which I was not as, I'm not like clinging to that in the same way others are, but appreciative of what it is, which is they're doing something in its own right, but it's still good to pick apart for someone like me that's interested in the lore and all that, and taking those deep dives with yourself, being able to ask those questions, just talk it through, and be like, oh, right, okay, right, that's pretty cool. And in a way that you did an excellent job of never spoiling anything that's coming with it. We obviously know the broad strokes of Final Fantasy VII just through osmosis of like being a gamer for like over 30 years, but the cast of characters the way that they have treated this world with the care and attention, going along with Cloud and Aerith, and even you've obviously got Tifa, you've got Barrett, but then the way that they've kind of more not introduced, but like Yuffie's got more of a role to play in this one. Kate Sith.
Yeah.
Vincent, I felt probably out of all the characters, he was probably the most underused because obviously I know he's going to have a bigger part to play.
Just you fucking wait. You fucking wait.
Red,
and Sid as well.
Sid as well, yeah.
Red 13. Aye.
I mean, this infamous, well, not infamous, this beloved and cherished cast of characters. Now, I know when this came out, I was shocked to see that, and you're right, it's probably came out too early in the year because it's almost become forgotten as to how good the game was, and we've kind of taken it for granted. There was some stuff that probably has gone against it over time. If it probably could have benefited with a wee bit of recency bias, but the decision to expand it, make it an open world style, granted, I didn't go and polish everything in the map, but that's my bread and butter. And that's something that I'm glad that I kept because it meant with the PS5 Pro I could go back and just get to see all these improvements again and have a reason to play it. But that, the combat's exceptional. I thought the world structure was great and it was engaging. Don't get me wrong. If it was a Ubisoft game, we would have absolutely hung it out to dry by this point. But that's not the point. It's just giving you more reason to spend time with these characters in this world. And yeah, it absolutely had to be the game of the year this year because of what it represented on our journey in this podcast. It was, it really, it's a moment that's going to stay with me forever.
Yeah.
Just kind of going through Remake and Rebirth in itself, kind of getting on the train, experiencing it at the same time, talking about it on this show. It was special, and it just so happens to be an absolutely exceptional game. So yeah, it's well deserving in my eyes.
That's it. Aye, yeah. I don't think I can say much more about it. It builds on everything that Remake, Part 1 had done, but it also manages to, encapsulate everything that the original was trying to do.
Yeah.
In such a way that it complements the original in such a way as well. Like, you come away from playing Part 2 and you're like, I could actually go and play the OGs, you know what I mean? Like, I want to go and do that again. So, it's just a beautiful experience. And all the characters and the interplay and stuff like that and how they all work out together is just phenomenal. So, I've not played it in the Pro yet. I'm too scared to go back to it because the minute I turn that game on, it's not going off. So,
yeah,
I'll save that for a time where I have more time and energy to do it. I'm too busy playing terrible games at the moment.
Yeah.
But it was just the fact that we're sitting here in 2024 and we've managed to play, Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 is ridiculous. So I'm all for it, man. I'm absolutely all for it. No. And the fact that it was good as well. Like, this could have come out and fucking flopped, but it didn't. And Barrett's a big fucking hunky bastard.
That is very true. I hope that history is kind to this game, because it's one that I think Metaphor ReFantasia's kind of come along and eaten a bit of its lunch, if I'm honest. And that's probably I couldn't have picked a better game where you feel more opposite on in comparison to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Let me take a minute with Metaphor, right? Just before we fucking wrap this up, because it's a pain in the arse. It's just Metaphor ReFantazio has come out in a year where everything that it talks about, like all of its political conversations and all of its, everything that it's trying to touch on is so apt for 2024. Like, you couldn't have written this any better for this year. And it's just touching on everything to do with that. Now, if this had come out in 2020, it'd have been like, what? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's just it's a total, it's a product of its time. I don't think it does anything better than Persona 3 though. Like, that's the thing with it. I think Persona 3 is ultimately a better game, but that might just be because I'm not the fantasy fan. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not, the high fantasy is not for me. I'd be interested to get your take on it, to be honest with you. I think it's a game that if it wasn't anime as all hell, I think it's a game that you would actually really enjoy, to be honest with you. But
yeah, I mean, it's the art style.
Not something
It's the art style with these Atlas games. Like, I can't do it, man. It's just
a pure headache. And the fact that I played it for what 60, 70 odd hours, and I just can't be arsed with it. Like, I honestly couldn't even fucking look at it anymore. That stupid character's face. Can't do it.
I mean, I'm a simple man, simple taste, and that just goes a little bit too, and it veers a little bit too much into what my pretense can take, to be honest. And it's just not for me. But horses for courses and all that. So yeah,
that's it. There's obviously fans. There's fans of it, and
plenty of them. Doesn't need
plenty of them. But people need to tell you. The people that are fans of it need to tell you that they're fans of it as well. You know what I mean? Like, it's they're the vegans of the video game world. But it's, what'd you call it? It's you sounded like Mr. Slave there.
You may as well.
It's definitely an experience. But was there any games that we've obviously spoken about our own list? Were there any games that you would like to mention in terms of games that are not on the list that you want to kind of give a wee shout out to?
There are. I think this is probably my personal ones that are kind of like that didn't make the official list, but I want to just give a shout out to. So for me, that's Rise of the Ronin, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, and most recently, believe it or not, is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. That I know. I have just finished that game, and as a very nerdy Indiana Jones fan, as someone who as a kid wanted to be an archaeologist, you can see where that Steven Spielberg has a lot to answer for between that and Jurassic Park. But the way that game actually understood the assignment and who Indiana Jones is. He's a nerd. He's an archaeologist. He's going to sit and take his time. He's not a gunslinging, like, swashbuckling hero. He's not Nathan Drake. He's not a mass murderer. It's he uses his fists second and his brain first, and they got it. They just got it. But I do concede that it's we talk about Astrobot in terms of the execution of it. It's obviously not been as slick because it's a very polarizing, very weird game, but it's one that I happen to really, really enjoy. So there might also runs. There's the honourable mentions for myself. What about
honourable
yourself?
Mentions. For me, there was just 3 of them. So I mentioned that a minute ago, but Persona 3 Reload, a ridiculous experience, and I think that tarnished my thoughts of Metaphor, I think, because I played it in the exact same year. Finished 2 fucking Atlas games this year, which is disgusting.
Mental.
Put Crow Country on there as well. An excellent wee experience. PS1 horror type game. If you love old Resident Evil games and you love being scared, then this is cool. And I think it's only a couple of people that made it as well, which was a ridiculous undertaking. So it's a really good time. And I think it's pretty cheap as well. And the only other game that I had on my own list was Black Myth Wukong.
Oh yes. Yeah.
The game director absolutely fucking shitting on the Game Awards since it's been is quite possibly one of the funniest things that I've seen. But what'd you call it? He's very divisive in his own right. He's the Chinese Joseph Fares. We just don't like him. But what'd you call it? He just makes stupid comments and doesn't care.
Yeah.
But that game delivered spades and spades of experiences for people. Like, the numbers when that game was out is ridiculous, and the fact that it didn't even look. It's a very simple game in terms of the combat and everything that it's trying to do in terms of its gameplay, but the visuals are ridiculous. Like, you open that game up and you're just like, oh my god, like how could they do this?
Yeah.
The wee touches of personality in and stuff as well. Like, when you finish a chapter, you get a wee animation, and that animation changes in terms of what's coming up in the next chapter. Fucking awesome! It's so cool. But what holds it back is it's the gameplay is not, and the combat is not great. It's just it's an all right, it's an all right combat system, but I think it's a bloody good effort for a team that haven't made a game like this before. I don't think that this is their bread and butter. So I think the fact that this is their first attempt at something so huge in scale is just mad. And they've benefited from the Chinese rub because the concurrent gamers on Steam and everything was just mad the first few weeks on it. So I think it definitely deserves a wee shout out. I'm going to throw in there Like a Dragon as well because I don't think we can look at ourselves in the eye as gaming enthusiasts and not mention that is a game that deserves some flowers.
Yeah,
I'll let someone else in the world come up with their own reasons for it because I haven't played it. I don't think I could even bring myself to play it because if I start Yakuza series all over again, I'll never finish any other game in the future. So I can't do that to myself. But
I mean,
it's definitely something that the hate that the Game Awards got because it didn't acknowledge it very much. And the fans and stuff, and the lead up to it were fucking crying. So, aye.
I mean, that's probably a winner of a category in its own right, which is best game we never got a chance to play. Which is it's on the list there. But the thing, like you said, it's the time input that really put me off on that one. But who knows? We'll see. We'll
in the future, I think it will be a game that I'll play in the future. But I've just got no emotional ties to Ichiban or anything like that yet.
Yet.
Well, yeah, exactly. So there'll definitely be time there for it, but I don't think there was anything else. I don't think I've played any other games this year that deserve acknowledgement.
Well, another one I think that we've not mentioned, but it's a bit of a contentious one, is Shadow of the Erdtree. But I think there's been enough spoken about that.
The elephant in the room, in it. Like it is what it is. It's Elden Ring and it's hard. So
that's it. If you like either of those things,
take it, man.
That's it. Go forth. But
that's weird. That's weird. But it's definitely something. And yeah, the future's cool. Like I think that we've obviously not spoken about the Game Awards as a whole, and I don't really want to get into the whole show, but from what we've seen in terms of the future and stuff, I think that everything looks pretty interesting. So
it does.
I'm glad to see where we'll go in the future.
Probably is a chance again for us to plug. If you've not listened to it, go back. It was to episode, I think it was 36, 37, Fixing the Game Awards, and that was recorded before the show. And I think all the criticisms and everything we do to fix it are as true now as what they were beforehand. And of course, as I'm not going to name names, but one of the wildest things I've heard in the lead up to it is if you don't like it, just go make your own show. So yeah, it's
watch this space.
Watch this
space. Parents is making their own Game Awards now.
Yeah, I think for me, like when we do this Game of the Year list, that is what it is. It's just a very little publication that could just name in something, given a bit of recognition. Game Awards is a media marketing event. It's not an awards show. So I think that's all I'll say in that, which is the polar opposite.
That doesn't have it doesn't have the same ring to it, It doesn't. Jeff Keighley's media marketing event.
I know it's a Winter Games Fest. It's solidified that. I wouldn't even say it's like the MTV Movie Awards because they also were a joke. But yeah, I think whatever games that you've had a chance to play this year, whether it's us, whether it's Jeff Keighley, whether it's GameSpot or whatever else, whoever else is still out there doing their thing, it's been a really good year for it. It's been 2024 has been a very, very good year, and there's a plethora of games.
It's certainly been a year. Yeah, no, definitely, and it's been our first year as a podcast, so it'd be nice to share that with the people of the world.
Yeah, and well done again to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. You are the first recipient of the Pixel Parents Podcast Game of the Year award. Of course, Scott, there's no Pixel Pix Showdown on this episode because, well, that would just be a bit silly. It's a showdown in itself, naming the Game of the Year. But with that, it does bring an end to this week's podcast, which I believe will be the last one for 2024. So I just want to say thank you again to everybody that's joined us this year. It's meant the world. It really has. I think what me and Scott do here is really a chance for the two of us to get together and talk about the thing that we enjoy the most. And it's great just to see everybody join us and listen. Really does mean the world. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I was just going to leave, dead silence there, just to leave that
want
because
to
it's so
thank you.
heartfelt. I don't want to thank anyone. Fuck all yo. Nah, it's definitely something that it's been a fantastic outlet for chaos and nonsense. But I think we've said this before, and I'll say it a million times. It's just cool to see community and people come together and talk nonsense with us as well. So, yeah, it's always a good laugh. And I'm tired. I've been taking painkillers. If my performance has been off, I hurt my back. We went to see Santa. I'll leave you with this. We went to see Santa with the little one yesterday, and I bent down to kind of get down to my daughter's level just to sit with her when Santa was there. And as I bent down, I tweaked my back.
Oh man!
And I could not stand up for the life of me. So I was like, I'm now part of this parade with Santa. I'm just going to sit here with Santa, and when the kids come in, be like, all right, mate, what do you want for Christmas? But I am now painkiller. So I've been sitting here trying my hardest not to fall asleep mid-conversation here.
We'll wrap this up. Only one last thing I'll ask of you. Scott, where can people find you if they want to engage with you online?
Nowhere. Llamaman.bsky.social, I believe it is.
Bang on. Got it in one.
So. Aye. On the old Sky Blue.
That's it. If you want to engage with myself, I'm at carmelite.bsky.social. I want to give a massive thank you and a shout out to our producer and music man, the talented and handsome Mr. Sean Murray, who, of course, you can hear on our Christmas special episode, which is the one preceding this. So go check it out. It was great to kind of get him involved in the show, and I look forward to getting him more involved as we go on into next year. We've got some cool plans there to bring Sean along on our journey. Of course, you can listen to the next episode on all major podcast platforms and follow us on Blue Sky at pixelparents.bsky.social and write to us at pixelparentspodcast@gmail.com. But until next time, stay safe, stay sane, and have a wonderful new year.
Merry Christmas. Oh, we've already had Christmas.